All right, welcome to another video in our node by node challenge that we're doing, going through all the different nodes in the shading workspace within Blender 4.3. So we are on the different converters within Blender in the converter section. The one that we are on right now is called the mix node. The mix node has three different functions. First off, you're going to notice that it's going to have a drop-down box with float, vector, and color. Float is going to be able to combine two different numbers or two different inputs and have it be a weighted average based on whatever factor that you have selected. So it's pretty simple and self-explanatory. Vector is going to do the same thing, but it's going to do it with two vector inputs. So an XYZ, an RGB, whatever you're going to be doing that's got three separate inputs. You can actually take and plug that in to each one of these options. And then same thing, it's a weighted average between the two of them. So something pretty straightforward. You would use that really if you want to be able to just literally combine two textures or combine two images that have some sort of blend mode or anything that you want to be able to use. So it's just really, it's going to have anything that's going to have some sort of texturing that you want to combine that's got three inputs to it, and it's going to give one output of whatever the weighted factor is. Now, those are pretty basic. The color one is a little bit different. So the mixed color is used all the time. It's used for a lot of different reasons. One being mixing two colors together with one of many different blend modes. But then the other thing that it does is it also can provide as a mask. So what you can do is you can actually use a mask and be able to plug it into the factor. So say, for example, you had the top of a roof and you wanted part of the roof to be shingles and part of the roof to be leaves, for example. You could have one texture that is the roof shingles, one texture that is the leaves, and then you could create a mask that basically is telling you where you want the leaves to be. So you use something like a noise texture or a Voronoi or something like that gives you kind of random data. And what you do is you would create the mask, put it into something like a color ramp to be able to build up the contrast, and then drop that into the factor. And so what that would tell it to do is say anywhere that it has that information is where you'd want to do it. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So I'll just give you a basic understanding of it. So let's say that we were going to take a Voronoi texture, and I'll just pump this up a little bit. And let's say we threw it into the factor for the two different colors. And let's just say that I'm just going to drop two colors on here. Okay, so and it doesn't really matter what colors I use. It's just really to give you an idea. And let's say that I wanted to just boost up the contrast a little bit. So let's say that I'm going to boost this up a little bit. I'm just going to do it this way. Okay, so let's say that I had two different textures. So let's say I was making like metal with rust on it or something like that, and I wanted all the red to be metal, and I wanted all the rust to be where the blue spots are. What I could do is I could use this as my mask and plug this in here, and instead of using two different colors, I could use a texture that was metal to be able to come in here. Okay, for one of these options. So that would be my red. And then I could use a texture that I had created for the rust that's going to go into A. And what that's going to do is it's going to say any spots that are red are going to be this metal texture. Any spots that are blue are going to be this rust texture. And then when it outputs it, it's going to take the combination of them. So that's something that's pretty cool when you're trying to create masks. It's a really simple, easy way to do masks. And you can get really complex, but that's just the basic understanding. So you understand that this can be used to create a mask. So let's say you're not creating a mask and you're just actually creating the textures and you want to be able to mix them in a certain way. So I've got two textures here, a noise and a wave. So I'm going to plug them into each of these colors. So instead of it being a color, I'm just going to plug in these different textures, and you'll see the wave texture goes around and the noise texture is all the little blotchiness. So we've got these two, and I just put some color ramps just to boost the contrast. That's all I did with that. So you've got these two different textures that are on here, and right now it's taking and doing a mix. So you're going to see these two boxes checked. Usually you're always going to have them checked, because all that means is you're clamping the result from 0 to 1. You don't want it to go outside of 1 usually, because if it goes outside of 1, even though it may not change the way that this looks, what happens is if you have other nodes and stuff over here that you're inputting into, it can mess up the calculations. Because let's say you had an output of 5, for example, going into something that only goes up to 1. Then when you go and you try to make any adjustments to it, it's gonna affect it and possibly make it to where it doesn't even work. So you want to clamp both of these if you can. So not a huge deal, but you definitely should probably do that. So as of right now, it's just taking a combination of these two. So you can see that all the way to the left is going to be my noise texture. All the way to the right is going to be my wave texture that I've got on here. If I do 50-50, it's going to bring it kind of somewhere in the middle, right? So a little bit of both of the textures. Does look kind of cool as is, but let's say that we didn't like this blending method and we wanted to change it. So they have all these different categories. Okay, so they broke up the categories by what they do as a whole. So like these first 3 are all ways to darken your image. So each one of these darken in a different way. So, and they go kind of in order of how extreme it is. So they've got darken, which is going to darken all the dark spots a little bit. You've got multiply, which multiplies the two numbers to make it a little bit darker. So you'll notice it's even slightly darker than darken. So just to show you again, so you've got darken, and then you got multiply, which it's not real drastic. In some textures, you're going to notice it more than others, but technically multiply is going to take the two different objects. It's going to multiply them together, and it's going to create a darker output. Color burn is going to be darker even yet, so it's basically going to burn out all the darkest areas first, and then as you would increase the strength of it, it would actually eventually get into the light areas. But for the most part, color burn is going to burn the dark areas first. Then you have another category. So you have this one that's all about making it lighter. So these 4 all make it lighter. They go kind of in order as well. So lighten is going to take and lighten up all the lighter areas first, and then get into the dark areas and lighten it. So that's going to basically take the two textures and combine them and make the light areas a little bit brighter right off the start. When you get into screen is going to do something similar, but it's going to work similar to an overlay, but it's basically going to lighten them up even more, because you're going to have some of the light coming through the dark areas and the light areas all lighting up at the same time. So it's a little bit different. Color dodge is going to work a little bit different in the fact that it's going to actually create a little bit more contrast. Because it's going to take the two images, find out where they overlap, and then it's going to lighten it up. So overall, it lightens it quite a bit. So you'll notice that color dodge is going to be the one that lightens it the most between those 3 options. And then you have add, and all add is doing is taking these two textures and adding all the lights together, so that it makes them even lighter. So because the higher the number, the more towards white it goes, and so it has the ability of going past 1, which is why you have it clamped. So that just means that you may not see a huge difference if you're already close to 1, and you add the two together, it may have only a small change to it. So if you notice the add doesn't do a lot, that's why. It's because you're already almost at the max where it's going to be clamped at the end. Then you have 3 other ones. So you have overlay, soft light, linear light. So these ones are used quite a bit too. So overlay is going to overlay the two together, and you are going to get some of the darker areas darker and the lighter areas lighter. So it will make it a little bit more contrasty. You'll notice that right when I did it, it made all these dark areas pop a little bit more. So that's something to keep in mind, is it does make both the darkers darker and the lighters lighter a little bit. Then you have soft light. So soft light, think of it as just a overlay that's a little bit smoother. So the transition from the light to the dark is a little bit smoother. You're not going to have as harsh edges, and so it tends to be a little bit nicer of a way to be able to do things if you don't want it to have like a dramatic change from one texture to the next. Then you got linear light. Linear light is going to be one that is used quite a bit. It's basically taking the two of them and doing the same thing, lightening the lights a lot, darkening the darks a lot. And what you'll see is the difference when you look at soft light going to linear light, you're going to see that these dark areas really start to pop and the light areas get really light. And then these areas that are kind of a mix that are gray are going to stand out even more too. So all the three of them are different. So when you go through each of these, so you've got overlay, and then you got soft light, which is a smoother transition, and it's a little bit harder to see the difference between the two different textures. So if you want them to kind of blend together, that's soft light's a good one. Linear light makes it really obvious, so you can see the two textures completely. And then overlay is kind of in the middle. So when I look at it, if I want my textures to be completely separate, super obvious, I would use linear light. If I want it to be only kind of obvious, I would do overlay. And if I don't want it to be obvious at all, I would use soft light. That's kind of my thought process. Then you have 4 different comparative ones. Difference and subtract work very similar. Exclusion a little bit too, but basically difference is going to take one of the textures minus the other one and come out with, whatever the output is. So you'll notice that a lot of this kind of went gray. And that's because my textures, if you notice behind here, once you took the difference of one minus the other, it actually made it basically even. So any of these ones that were exactly the same, it basically removes them. So that's why it looks like there's no texturing there at all. So difference is, I don't use difference a whole lot, but it's basically something that you can do if you want to be able to have the difference between one and the other. Exclusion is going to be similar to difference. You'll notice though that if you use difference, it's got a little bit harsher transition, whereas exclusion seems to be a little bit smoother transition, but it does the same thing. It's still going to remove those areas that are exactly the same output. Subtract is just going to take one number minus the other number, and it's going to create the output. You'll see that the areas that had all the rings, because it was black in the rings and then there was black above it, it's darkening every area almost like multiply does. So it's basically going to sit and make every area darker that has 2 different textures over it. So 2 different areas that are black. So just know that the subtract can make it quite a bit darker on any areas that overlap. Divide is exactly what it says. You can take one number, divide it into the other one. So you tend to get some weird effects with it. As you notice that because this had like stripes on it because of the one texture, that all these areas basically went to straight white because you're dividing one into the other. So any area that had black in it, you're going to see this pretty good division between the two of them. So it can be cool depending on what kind of texture that you want to be able to add. Especially if you put like a bump map to it, it can kind of make it a cool little look. But that basically is just taking one number, dividing into the other one, and giving you an output. Then you have 4 different ones here at the end. Now these ones I'm not going to be able to show you as well just because I don't have a colored object. Usually I'd want to be able to show this with like a picture. I can tell you that somebody that goes through all these a little more bit in depth, Dude Blender on YouTube is somebody definitely worth following. He has a full explanation of all these. He does a good example of these 4, but basically I'll just tell you what they are. So the hue, the saturation, the color, and the value are all going to affect the color on it. You'll see that the only one that really makes a difference in black and white is the value. And that's because it's going to just take it and it's all based on numbers. So it's the numbers of the 2 different ones. The white and black have, value of 0 and 1. So what it's going to do is it's going to give you a blended mix between the 2 of them of 50-50. Because right now I'm at a factor of 50. It's going to take half of black, half of white. That's why it's basically kind of halfway between for each one of these where the mix is. And then hue, saturation, and color. So hue is going to be just the hue itself as you're moving around the outside of the color wheel. Saturation is just going from the outside of the color wheel towards the center. So that's going to be able to give you, or other way around, I guess, the center to the outside, giving you more saturation. And then color is going to be a little bit different because it's going to be able to give you the HSV, or sorry, not the HSV, but the other aspect of color. So allowing you to change all the different aspects of it and give you the color output. So this one can work really well if you've got two different objects that are fully color. You want to be able to merge them together and be able to get a mix of the two. And so this one's something that's worth looking at, and I highly recommend taking a look at Dude Blender's video because he shows a really good example of how these work. I just don't have it set up with the colors on here, but I wanted to explain it to you anyway. So that's the overall of the mix node. You'll see that the mix color is used the most. Hopefully this helps. This is a long video, so sorry for the being a little bit more lengthy, but hopefully this helped a little bit. Follow, like, share, and stay tuned for my next ones.